Good evening. Welcome to the Diablo 3 podcast. We are online at diabloii.net. I am your host. I am named Flux, on the internet at least. I am also joined by other people who have funny internet names. One of them is Aahz.
Hola.
Also known as Aahz. And Wolfpaq. I just typed by accident, but actually it's Wolfpaq.
That's right. Hello.
And I typed an email earlier that said, "You're back from the dead," and it was a typo, but actually it's kind of accurate.
Yes, it is.
You had a baby. I should say your wife had a baby some months ago. Was it a year ago or so?
It was 13 months ago.
Okay. And you've been counting every second of it, and you have had much less time for podcasting and Diablo 3 frivolities since then.
Yeah.
And you just said you've been playing about 18 hours a day of Pokemon Go the last 3 days. You actually walked 17 miles and turned out you're in Burbank.
Yeah, making this call from the airport.
Exactly. Well, so we had a John Wayne for us. So we were talking about, we've been doing our top 10 class skill things for a while. We are down, tonight is the emergency fill-in show, also known as Demon Hunters, because that's the only one I can actually talk about with any knowledge, which is opposed to everything else I talk about on here, which is without knowledge. But I do it as style.
Yes, indeed.
Cha-ching. Okay, so Demon Hunter, we're hopefully doing the Witch Doctor next week, if we can find a living human who's played the Witch Doctor in the last 7 patches. I'm not sure that's actually possible. I see them around sometimes, so they must exist. Maybe we'll just do a top 10 Necromancer skill, so just to fuck with people. I'd be down for that, right? You guys would be down for that, right?
Yeah, I can put something together for that. I play a lot of Necro in the day.
Okay, Teeth, top 5 or bottom 5?
Oh, well, later, top 5, later in the game, right? Because they had the whole bone Necro build.
I don't remember. Okay, how about a Corpse Explosion?
Weren't there, though, at least, 5 skeleton skills? Those would all push out Teeth, I think.
I think I'd rather do a Necromancer top 10 than a Witch Doctor top 10.
That's right.
After you go piranhas and zombie bears, where else do you go, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Fetishes.
anyway. So, revive. So we were going to talk about, but of course there was a Poison Explosion. That's bottom 5. Anyway, we're talking about the top Necro Doctor, Witch Hunter, Demon Hunter skills later, which I currently have a top 22 list, I think. I'm going to have to try to remove... I'm pretty sure Spike Trap can go off there.
Definitely.
It's supposed to be a top 10 list.
Caltrops.
It's not a top 22 list. Yeah, I'll Caltrops, not Caltrops. It is supposed to be a top 10 list. It is not a top J. Wilson pizza topping list. Therefore, it should not be 27 items long, right?
That's the theory.
Like that, my old school J. Wilson flashback joke there. He's still fat, right? Fat jokes are cool when it's J. Wilson. We all like that.
Sure.
I guess we'll go with the Josh Mosqueira departure first. I talked about that a bunch last week, and there was some mystery news item this week where a source said that D3 expansion content, what would have been the next expansion pack, was released in advance. What seemed like absolutely common sense. I mean, we all said that when the cube appeared, right?
Yeah.
That's where one of you says yes.
Go ahead, Wolfpaq.
Oh, no, the cube is a huge change.
He hasn't followed the news in a year, man. He doesn't know what we're talking about, frankly.
No, I know.
Okay.
I know.
You follow the news, right? You're up on
I know what the Kunai Cube is, and I know that Josh left. And yeah, I think the Kunai Cube is totally something that could have been in an X-Pack.
So do you have any thoughts on Josh's departure? I mean, he'd probably been gone for months by the time they announced it, but obviously, were you still hoping for like a Diablo 3 expansion number 2 anytime recently? Or
yeah, I mean, I was really hoping to get one more class because I thought the Crusader was cool, even if I haven't played them as much as I have my Demon Hunters. But still, I mean, it's a little bit disappointing that we're not going to get, Charms? Never going to get Charms.
Yeah, that's never coming back. Now, when you say hoping for, were you thinking this might actually happen, or were you even following the game enough in recent months with the baby and stuff to realize that there's everyone's left the team?
Oh, no, I didn't think it would happen recently. This was back when BlizzCon happened last year. I was thinking that there would maybe be something, but then I saw how small the Diablo venue was, and then my hopes and dreams were crushed.
You saw both developers at that point.
Yeah.
And we're actually moonlighting on WoW, unbeknownst to us at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was sad to see Josh go, just from the standpoint of he seemed very enthusiastic, and when he came in, the game improved quite a bit. But I also get that, at some point in your career, you may just decide that you want to do something new or something different, or maybe with a different company, and maybe that's what happened with him. I don't know.
Do you think they asked him to stay on and lead the Diablo 4 team, or whatever we were mentioning this last week on the show, but if you look at the Blizzard jobs page now, there are 7 job openings for Diablo, in the Diablo team, and 6 of them are unannounced project, including Project Lead, which is what Josh is on Diablo 3 right now, or was.
It's certainly possible, but it's also, just as likely that they wanted to go in a new direction, or maybe they wanted to have him work on some other games in the interim, and he wasn't really for that. So who knows how far along they are really in the G4 process.
I would say very little, given that every job opening is for a senior, art or programmer or design lead.
Yeah, good point.
Any thoughts on that, Wolfpaq? Will you miss Josh? Obviously, the game improved a lot once he was there, but we don't know. He wasn't like single-handedly doing all that stuff, right?
Yeah, no, he had a pretty strong passion for the game, though. And
well, so did Jay Wilson, right?
Did he?
Yep. I'm not sure. I mean,
he said awesome a lot.
He did, but I mean, I obviously enjoy playing the game better since the X-Pack and the seasons than I do in vanilla.
We also saw how much reverence and respect Jay had for former Diablo 2 developers as well, so that's a good sign.
Yeah.
You like to follow their Facebook pages and make nice comments, right?
Yeah, really friendly.
Well, I mean, Jay was like the public face of the game for the first 4 years, and he's probably working on it since like 2005 or something. So he was enthusiastic, and he liked when the Barbarian was wildly overpowered and he could make Whirlwind the most powerful skill in the game. That was a good thing.
Who wouldn't like that?
Me, for one thing. Because fuck the Barbarian, frankly. But anyway, I mean, yeah, I don't think enthusiasm was something Jay was lacking, but obviously the game wasn't at launch what we wanted it to be, and Jay was the one who took the blame for that, even though he wasn't, making the entire. It wasn't like his mod, it wasn't like Jay Wilson's Diablo 3, right?
Yeah.
It was lots of people's Diablo 3.
Yeah, but at some point the buck has to stop.
And then he gets deep fried and eaten because Jay's hungry.
Yeah.
Hungry.
It's hard to know too how much, like if they decided, hey, we have to do the auction house, and that's going to limit the amount of drops. Maybe he got kind of locked into that. Without being in those rooms and hearing that, you just never know.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're going to blame whoever's to blame for the auction house to blame for Diablo 3, and that was why drop rates sucked. Of course, they still could have had good unique items in an end game. They could have had that with the auction the auction house as well.
Let's blame faceless corporate suits for that. That's the American way.
Let's blame Bobby Kotick. Remember Bobby Kotick? We used to blame him for everything.
There you go. Sorry, go ahead, Wolfpaq.
His little glowing red eyes and stuff.
Oh no, I was just going to say that to me that is like the number one failure of Diablo 3 Vanilla is the legendary items just being, well, number one, never dropping.
Right.
Unlegendary.
And then number two, when they did drop, it was just total garbage.
They were rares with orange type, basically.
Yeah, exactly. How could someone have played Diablo 2 and thought that was a good idea? I don't understand it.
Yeah, and I think the community pretty early on was pushing back against that, and it was still decided to launch in that manner.
Yeah.
I remember like 6 months before the game started, they put up a preliminary version of the BattleNet site, and they had all the unique items, and all of them were just crap.
Yeah.
They were like mid-range rares. Everyone said these are terrible, and Bash Shack would be like, well, these are just rough drafts, and much better ones when the game launches. And then they all went on vacation for 3 months and nothing happened or something. It was just.
Yeah, the number one Demon Hunter crossbow was because it had an extra socket. That was what made the best.
Because of a bug, yeah. Yeah, Mana Core with 2 sockets, and hey, it's a winner.
That was number one.
And the only way to find one was, of course, going to the goddamn auction house, so there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so our Josh Mosqueira departure has turned into Diablo 2 vanilla bashing, Diablo 3 vanilla bashing, and Jay Wilson pizza topping jokes. Other than that, it's a good start to the podcast.
Definitely.
Would either of you like to actually take a shit on anybody at this point, just to complete the metaphor, or should we move on?
We can move on.
Okay, good. Plus, one of you had chili last night, too, so that'll be messy. Okay, so the end of the season has been announced. I think we're in Season 6 now, but I couldn't totally swear to that, even though I've been playing it some lately.
You nailed it.
It's July 22nd, which is the Friday of next week. Is this too soon, too late? Either of you playing? Are you making a greater Rips push? Have you played this season, Wolfpaq, or are you too busy with real life?
No, I made a comeback this season. By just this season, I mean I started last weekend, and I made it to Paragon 200 just in time for the announcement that the season's ending.
So can you hit Paragon 1000 by next Friday, or you think probably not?
Doubtful.
Doubtful? You only got 780 to go, right? Well, just get some friends who are running GR85s and just sit by the entrance of the portal, and you'll be there in no time.
That's true. And I'll make my character a support demon hunter with a wolf howl.
There you go.
Have you taken advantage of the double shards weekend here to make up some lost time?
Yeah, I have. I've almost got the setup that I want to run.
Just in time to watch it be deleted by the caprices of seasonal endings.
Yeah.
You are also living in Southern California, not far from Irvine, not far from BlizzCon land and Blizzard.
Mm-hmm.
And so, is there any sign of a season changing in your location?
None whatsoever. It's been hot. I mean, it's hot. That's all there is. It's been hot for like a month.
And of course, that was our joke. That was my joke, at least, for the first 5 seasons. It was like, how will they know when the season ends? There are no seasons in Southern California. And you were like, that's not a joke. That's reality.
Yes, that's true.
There's one season a year, and it's hot.
Yep.
So how is your season going, Aahz? Have you done any planning? Are you excited for your last 9 days of Season 6 or whatever it's going to be?
Yeah, it seems like about the right time. I haven't played as much this season as last season, but I'm still at 730-some Paragon, and I've got about 2 more pieces to augment, so that'll be about right. And then I've only done a 65, but I'll probably just push and try to get that 75 to finish the season.
Have you had any burn this weekend with the double shards?
No, I've been traveling this weekend, so I got on for like, I don't know, maybe a couple hours, but I was at a hotel, so I just played softcore.
They have shards in softcore, or do you just start with 1,000,000 shards?
No,
softcore?
they have some out there. I mean, I was about T7-ish, and now I'm probably, T10-ish in softcore. Woohoo!
T10-ish. So I was wondering, I got a little bit on last night for like 2 hours and just did a bunch of GR55s really quick, and I was getting like 600 shards a pop, so that was a nice for like a 5-minute run, 7-minute run, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Has anyone ever like mathed out like what is the best approach when it's double shards? I guess it's like do the fastest GR you can run quickly. I mean, that is the best source of shards, right? Once you're over like 50.
Probably.
Certainly beats T10.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes some sense. I don't know if maybe somebody by now has mathed it out, but yeah, I was having trouble even running 50s with keeping enough inventory space, and enough, I gotta gamble again.
Yeah, well, I'm gambling on rings nonstop because I still haven't gotten a decent focus restraint run, so it doesn't fill up a lot of space there, Like every run, I just do, 7 minutes or something, 6 minutes, do a 55, gamble 12 rings, back right in there, so. I could actually do 2 or 3 trips without even going to the blacksmith.
Well, yeah, that's the advantage of those one inventory slot items, but they made greater rifts significantly easier, right? This season, like they nerfed monster damage again. So it would make sense that it's much better for shards to do greater rifts than T10.
Well, T10 is slower because the spawn is much worse. There's much less density.
Yeah.
And you get, if you can go over, obviously 45 is T10, so you can do, if you're even decently geared, you can do 65, 60, 65 at this point. So,
yeah.
You're getting 400 shards a pop and you're getting double that. Obviously, that's a pretty nice push. But I'm just wondering, like, are you better off, say you can do, like, GR60 is your highest, and, like, you can do a GR50 really fast? Like, just hypothetically speaking, right? Would you be better off doing 50, or would you be in 5 minutes, or 60 in 9 minutes, and you're getting more experience, obviously, but you don't get that many more shards. I haven't looked at lately how much shards, like, geometrically increase. Remember when you used to max out at 250 and, like, on, like, GR40 or something?
Yeah.
You think, well, that was just a waste of your time. Now it's just crazy. It keeps going. But yeah, no one knows and no one cares. Okay, good. Aren't you like an accountant, Aahz?
Yeah, but accountants don't.
Where's your Excel spreadsheet of greater rift production or something?
I don't do math like that, but I could search on it. I just haven't bothered. I knew I wasn't going to have much time to play, and really on my hardcore character, I mean, the one slot I've got left that's not ancient is a Hellfire Amulet, so. Blood charge, double blood charge. Don't do much.
Thanks, Kadala.
Yeah, so it just wasn't that important to me. And it was a bad weekend, so I'm missing it. And Blizzard said they weren't going to do one this season, so screw them. They picked the wrong weekend for it.
And they did?
Yeah. Terrible weekend for it. Because I was traveling.
Well, maybe like Bob Shards died at Blizzard, so they're honoring him with a double Shards weekend? No? That's a bad thing to say, right? I'm not good at human emotions. Okay, so I guess that's it for our any other recent thoughts before we get into the Demon Hunter stuff? Any other excitements for the end of the season or next season or
no, let's do
BlizzCon or
DH top 25.
Yeah, top 20. How many skills does he have anyway? Like 20, 25, 30 skills per character? Like 26, 24, something like that?
I'm not doing that. You can't trick me.
You don't get one every level, but I think there's like 25 per character or 24.
I'll find out.
I remember forever ago we had...
Oh, go ahead.
you can slide. Forever ago we had this whole thing, and there were like a couple of classes during development. Like one class had like 28 skills, and someone else had like 19. I remember the wizard had like way more skills than anybody else for a long time. And we were like, it's easy to think of cool wizard skills, and apparently there's like only like 8 good crusader skills in the world. But anyway, so we've been doing these top 10 lists. We've done 4 classes so far, everyone except for the Demon Hunter and the Witch Doctor. And as always, the brief disclaimer, this is not the most powerful skills. This is not the most useful skills. That changes every patch anyway. It's more like the skills that are fun or interesting or would be better if they were different.
24.
24 for the Demon Hunter?
Nice.
Awesome. Well, I think I have a top 22 list here. So I've ruled out Caltrops and Spike Trap, but not over pretty much everything's on there. So I was sorting lists. One of the things we did with the Wizard skill, we had a guest pop on Nerdwords, what's the fucker's name? Nerdwords, yes. Was on there initially, and he's like our wizard expert, and he had his top 10. And then we had someone else pop on at the end. I think it might have been Captain Goldfish, but I might be slandering him by forgetting. And he threw in like his top 5 skills that should have been awesome but weren't, or something like that.
Right.
And that's kind of how I have classified a lot of my... I was obviously thinking about the Demon Hunter skills all along once I said the top 10. Like, you know, how do you rank this? How do you sort this? And I found it really hard to sort. I just sort of went over them initially, and I started saying, okay, these are the ones that should have been good or could be awesome if with some changes. And like the first 8 of the first 10 skills went into that category. I'm like, okay, this is not going to work. So I basically have a 6 through 1 on should have been good or could be much better but aren't. Then I have about 5 honorable mentions, which basically are skills I have nothing interesting to say about, which could be the entire list depending on your point of view. But the honorable mentions I have less to say on. And then I actually have my top 6 favorite skills. So it's sort of all over the place. And Aahz, being a much more left-brained individual, sent me in a list of his top 10 skills.
Yeah, just a supplement.
So you actually followed the rules of the show, and I just made up all this bullshit on the fly, which is why I'm the host and I get the big bucks.
Why you're the lead. You're the lead DH.
And I have 2 chinchillas and an Asian wife. Oh, wait, that's the wrong person.
That's why I'm here.
That's why you're here. Yeah, so anyway, so number 1 on, so I'll just kind of go down my list, starting off with the skills that should have been, and obviously you guys can color commentary and tell me why I'm wrong, which will in fact actually explain why you're wrong, because I'm the host, and therefore I'm correct. Crickets.
There you go.
Sound effects. Okay.
That's reasonable.
Number 6, should have been cool, Fan of Knives. Always wanted this to work for a melee DH, and they finally made that enabling a couple of patches ago, but I never actually played that build, so I'm totally ignorant about it, but it seemed like a cool idea. But we always thought it would be awesome in the old days, and they just always refused to change it from a 10-second cooldown, back when cooldowns actually were 10 seconds, if they said 10 seconds. Yeah. And I always thought this would be awesome, it looks really cool, it's fun, and it's never, ever been usable for anything other than like an occasional on the way to 60 because it costs too much goddamn mana. Or resource, whatever the hell hunters have.
The only time it became usable was when they added that knife, and they added redid the whole Shadow's Heart set. I'm getting the name of the set wrong, I'm sure, but...
Close enough. Shadow something.
Yeah, so that you could actually use a main hand dagger and not ruin your entire damage output for everything else. But it was... I don't know. I played that because that was the... I think for Season 5, that was the free set you got, was the...
the Shadow set.
Shadow set. So, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun to start out with because you would just sort of vault ahead and find the elites and just like blow them up. But later,
and then you had your 14,000 damage impale in that set also. So.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Single target demolition. Yeah.
But they at the last second before the season went live, they nerfed the set for reasons that don't really make any sense, and so it ended up falling significantly behind Marauders and the Unhallowed Essence, and considering how limited you were, because Impale is your main damage, and it's like, I mean, I know we're supposed to be talking about Fan of Knives, but that set was basically an Impale booster for the 6-piece, and so Impale doesn't have really good AoE, so the set sort of fell off as you were trying to push Greater Rifts, so that was just... If you
were doing shots at home, when anyone says a fantastic understatement, that was your first shot. With Impale, it doesn't have great AoE.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
it's like saying Jake Wilson doesn't have great dietary impulse control. Okay, the Jake Wilson joke. Okay, any thoughts on a Fan of Knives there?
Yeah, there's a Legacy of Nightmares build too, and it works pretty well with that. I'm looking at my non-seasonal DH, and I've even got like an old Sash of Knives that has like, I don't know, 49% damage boost, but I don't know if that really helps it or not. But I've wanted to play around with that. Not enough to like play non-season, but.
And they put what is it? It's a belt, I forget. No, it's a sword, right? Where like, every second
dagger, the dagger.
Yeah, every second it like stacks another damage point to Phantom Knives until you use it or something.
Or Greenstone's fan, yep. Yeah, so you can use it with the Legacy of Nightmares build too.
But like I wondered, anyway, that's enough time for my sixth place should have been cool set. But I don't know. I thought Phantom Knives, like I like the idea of it, and it's this spiky thing and it looks cool. If you ever saw it like in really slow motion, like the fans come out, like the knives come out like in two little patterns, like in a circle around you. It's not all just at once. It actually like it's kind of like you're spinning your hands out, and there's 1,000 knives coming out every tenth of a second. Looks hella sexy, but just never really that useful until the recent season. I didn't play it in. So
yeah, and the AOE range the radius could have been larger too.
And I always just thought it could have had like a firecracker effect or something, like multiple, like each one triggers a new Phantom Knives from that monster or something, or they could they could bounce around or have one with huge range damage or whatever. Okay, number 5, Entangling Shot, which is one of the spinders. It's like shoots a chain out that locks stuff together. It was actually kind of cool, like back in the old days of D3 Vanilla when you had to like kite everything.
Right.
It was fun to like chain a zombie to like a leaper, but the chains would stretch for like 1,000 meters and look kind of stupid. I always thought if it actually was a chaining effect. Basically, there's a bunch of skills here I noticed would have been awesome in Diablo 2. When you had like smaller groups to some extent, you had like and bosses were like really grindy sometimes. Mm-hmm. If you could have like chained up a whole boss pack in D2. And early in D3, it was kind of useful. It was like tactical. But, I mean, I don't know that it's possible really to make a generator to be that useful long term.
Yeah.
Right.
Had some CC controls in it, but just kind of there.
And, I mean, it only hit one target and only chained once. And then the rune that makes it hit more targets.
Chain Gang.
Yeah, Chain Gang made it hit 4 enemies. Like, that's not super exciting.
But if it really like locks them down in some way, obviously it doesn't matter in the current game because everything is killing 1,000 monsters every tenth of a second,
Right.
But it was kind of a tactical CC. I kind of like skills that do a couple of interesting things, and like its damage plus it gave you actual damage to multiple targets when it chained, and it like had a CC effect, but just never really worked. But anyway, that's why it's on this list. Next up, another this one should have probably been higher on this, but it's another generator, Hungering Arrow. Which, of course, is just what's called Guided Arrow in Diablo 2, and I always thought Hungry Arrow was a really stupid name. Like it's eating things.
Yeah.
But they were not remaking Diablo 2, so they couldn't call it Guided Arrow. Had to be
Could
Diablo 3.
Could one of you guys make the Jay Wilson joke here instead of me doing it this time?
No, that's just...
obviously a game that Jay Wilson designs will have what we call it Hungry. Okay, never mind. It was fun early on. Like, it's nice. It gives you accuracy and auto hits. I have a reason why it's never been a viable skill in Diablo 3 as compared to Diablo 2, and not just because Diablo 2, for a long time in D2, if people don't remember, in V109 of that, this was like the most powerful skill in the game because it could pierce multiple times the same target.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was a bug, but it was really awesome. You could get like 4 of these out at once, and like they're all piercing the same target like 5 times. Just like you're hitting this monster like 20 times in a tenth of a second. It was awesome, but it was a bug. But so why was there never an effect in Diablo 3 that did that? Aside from the fact that it would have made a generator the most powerful skill in the game. Other than that, though.
Well, it's again the emphasis on single target when it's a game where you have to kill tens of thousands of monsters per second. So
yeah,
I mean, I know they brought in area damage, but even with that and for a while people were trying to make a build work. I remember with the Devouring Arrow, where the consecutive pierce keeps going up and up and up. Then using the quiver or whatever that drastically increased the pierce chance. But I don't know. I tried it a few times. I was never able to make it work very well.
At launch, you could have made a case for single target damage being useful, especially, in vulnerable minions. So in theory, if you had something that would just hit the yellow over and over and over and kill it, that would have been helpful.
Yeah, that's true. But you can't control it, right? Once it pierces, it goes off and maybe tries to hit something else.
Yeah, like Shatter Shot was kind of a cool effect where it split into 3, but that would always happen like the edge of the screen. They would just sort of fly off the screen and not do any usefulness for you. It was hard to make it work. The real issue I think about with that skill, though, is that 2-hit doesn't exist in Diablo 3. Like in Diablo 2, that was a major factor. You had to, in Diablo 1 also, but there weren't, Amazons, but they were archers, rogues.
Yeah.
But in D2, you would start off at like 60% to hit, and your shots would just go right through stuff. And you had to keep... so a skill that actually always hit something was really valuable in that game. Even, at high levels, you had enough dexterity to get to 85 or 90% all the time. But that actually made a difference. And on Diablo 3, they just decided not to have to hit. It was all about damage mitigation.
Mm-hmm.
So you would always hit stuff, but your damage you did them would be less or more depending on other features. And that seems like to me that kind of makes Guided Arrow or Hungering Arrow kind of useless.
True.
So unfixable. Okay. Number 4, you may disagree. This is probably on your list, Aahz. Vengeance. Vengeance, remember when it was totally useless forever?
Right.
The cooldown was like 5 minutes and you couldn't do it, and it was like had no buffs.
Yeah.
And now, of course, it's exactly the opposite, where every Demon Hunter has it up 97% of the time, and everybody has Dawn in their cube as their weapon, and it went from like nobody using it to like now it's wildly overpowered with a full-time damage buff, and everybody uses Seeds and they get like a full-time massive hatred boost.
Yeah.
So that's why I say it was too useless in the past, and now it's too overpowered. Any disagreement on that?
I really wanted it to work. Like when it first came out, I kept trying to use it and really liked the way that it looked. Really liked the the CC immunity that it gave you and the hatred boost. But yeah, in the early days you just ended up giving up on it because it wasn't available enough.
And now every Demon Hunter in the game is constantly sort of an orange glowing color.
Yeah,
That's correct.
100% uptime, half damage, steroid. It's just
Bunch of hatred.
Yeah, a bunch of hatred. It's too good.
So was it too bad in the old days, or is it too good now? Or is there no Goldilocks level for Vengeance?
Go ahead.
No. You go ahead.
I was just going to say that with the other classes, most of the other classes having the perma buff like that, they had to add it for Demon Hunters. I guess they didn't have to, but they had to at least improve it to where it was up a lot more. And so if they're going to leave the other classes with, Aahz Champion and Wrath of the Berserker, then you're going to, I think you have to have it as an option for the Demon Hunter.
What if you doubled the effect of it right now and doubled the cooldown time as well? Would that make it more fun to use, or?
Probably, just because it would at least add somewhat of a strategic element. But then would it last on the bar or not? Because, obviously in Greater Rifts you need to have some type of constant damage output, and it's a big defense too without being, you can't get vortexed in.
And most people have the stupid helm that gives you the full-time, the damage reduction version of it as well in their cube,
Yeah.
at least in hardcore.
Yep, Message of Goons or whatever.
Guiya or something, Guyya, something like that.
Goons.
I personally don't like having to keep track of the steroid cooldown. It doesn't strike me as something that's very Diablo-ish. It strikes me more as a WoW thing, like, oh, it's the boss burn phase, better hit everyone, use all your cooldowns. But like for Diablo, I could do without it. I'd rather just have more skills to use that interact together in more interesting ways than just, let me every 20 seconds, 40, whatever, let me hit my ability that drastically increases my hatred regen and my damage reduction.
And your damage and everything else.
Yeah.
It makes you orange.
Yeah, and also now as part of the Unhallowed Essence set.
Did Vengeance make your top 10 list, Aahz?
It did. Yeah, and
do you regret that now?
No. I mean, I
now
think
that I explained to you why you were wrong to like it?
It's a fun one, and it looked really good when ROS came out. So I enjoyed using it even then, even though I couldn't, work it into an ultra powerful build until Dawn.
Yeah, we've had this debate about the same Wrath of the Berserker and Archon and whatever the stupid monk one is nobody uses, and
Epiphany.
It's like that too, Epiphany Proudfoot, but yeah, there's a movie called Angel Heart. You guys should go watch it. That's all I can ever think of when I ever hear that name. It's a Mickey Rourke detective thriller. It's kind of sexy. And what's that chick?
Lisa Bonet, yeah,
Cosby
right.
It's her name. Her character in the movie is called Epiphany Proudfoot. Whenever I ever hear Epiphany, I always think of that movie. It's a good movie, though.
Man,
anyway.
your references are really up to date.
Yeah, it's only a 25-year-old movie back before Mickey Rourke turned into a mutant. Yeah, she's like naked and stuff in the movie, so it's a pretty hot film. Anyway. See, it's a good psychological thriller kind of thing, supernatural deal. Anyway, yeah, so it's like the whole thing with these skills, all of these sort of full-time Wrath of the Berserker stuff. They're either like way overpowered and everybody uses them 100% of the time, or else they have a big cooldown and no one uses them at all. And it's like it seems like it's really hard to balance these.
Yeah, well, it's basically
except maybe Epiphany is kind of balanced because it's not super powerful, so you don't need it up 100% of the time.
Well, the way it is now, if it's part of a set, then you use it, and if it's not, unless there's some sort of really crazy unique interaction, then you can't really use it. That's why, I mean, I don't know, did Rapid Fire make a top list for any of you guys? Because
we're getting very close to that on my list, so yes.
Okay, then let's go ahead with your list then.
So the next one up here is Multishot. another very cool generator concept. You shoot these arrows out and they wrap around targets and then take a couple seconds and explode. Really cool strategic play in the early days. I remember you try to shoot every monster with one of these, and then the chain reaction would go off. And then eventually, much like some of the other skills, it became useless when you're just vomiting out 100 billion arrows every tenth of a second.
Yep.
But it was so.
Do you recall using this with skill sets in the old days, Aahz, and having hit each monster one time and aiming different things in the sides and stuff?
Yeah, I did, because you were trying to build up hatred again at that point, and I also enjoyed the poison one. That one was a fun one.
Shut out 3 at once.
Yeah. So you would build up some attack speed, and you could throw a lot out at once. And of course, at that point in the game, the spenders were pretty meh for demon hunters. So you were using your generators a lot, really. I mean, especially compared to now.
Did they get rid of the one that used to be one that stuns, right?
Yeah, Thunderball or something.
Thunderball's still out there, yeah.
But it doesn't stun anymore. It just increases hatred regen.
That might be
correct. I think
correct.
It still stuns. No one's used it in 6 months, dude. No one knows.
All right.
2 years. The first time ever through the game, I had to switch to that build to beat Diablo on Hell. I remember I could not beat him on Hell back before everything got nerfed. And I just kept dying him repeatedly on Hell, and finally had to use a Thunderball with 2 crossbows just to keep him stunned 90% of the battle. That's my only recollection of that skill. It's kind of depressing, really.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't stun anymore. It just generates more hatred.
Because
Thunderball.
Hatred.
Back when it stunned, I remember I used that for a while.
Agreed. Same here.
So how come there's never been a version of Multishot that does some kind of domino effect, exploding palm, gung-go gear set? I mean, obviously, except for the fact that would be wildly overpowered for a hatred generator.
It's a generator.
But it could be awesome, though, right? If it splattered off to each one, multiple things, and it would chain across the whole screen.
That would be too complicated. If you had to actually target different monsters and then decide which ones were going to blow up at once. So, can't have that in this game.
Thinking? No good?
No good. Too much thinking.
Okay, the next two here. Okay, that was number 3. My should have been better, but isn't list. Number 2, this is probably some argument time, hopefully anyway. Multishot. I think this is the worst executed Demon Hunter offensive skill in the game. Is Multishot on your top 10, Aahz?
It is. Yang's recurve, man, they put it in just for Mr. Yang so that it was a good skill. How can you not like it?
Well, they had to really, really work to make it good.
Well,
they just kept reducing the hatred cost infinitely.
But in the old days, there was a build, right, where you could get discipline with it. So it was a discipline refill.
Yeah,
what was that?
That's right.
Full broadside, not full broadside. I can't remember which one now, but so it did have a kind of a niche use, not as a damage dealer, but as a way to refill your discipline. Which
should work because it hits everything on the entire screen.
Right.
So my drawbacks of Multishot, looking back to how Multishot worked in Diablo 2, you got another arrow with every skill point you spent. So you had to determine how many skill points you wanted to use to how many arrows you got. If you had too many, it was a waste. And you couldn't hit things with more than one arrow at a time, and it had a whole aiming component, where if you clicked close to you, they would go out in a much wider spray.
Yeah, that's right.
Or if you shot at the very edge of the screen, they would go out in a much tighter bunch. So you had to aim it and stuff.
That's true.
Everything of that is gone in Diablo 3. It's always the same spray no matter where you click. The only limit on it early in the game was just it cost way too much hatred to use.
Yeah.
You can't aim it properly. It doesn't hit things more than once. It shoots really fast. And there's no aiming component. You don't have to put skill points in it deciding how powerful you want it to be. And it was never useful because it never did enough damage for the hatred cost until they wildly buffed it, and now it's super overpowered with the UE set. And I think that's the dumbest set in the game because basically the what the hell is it? Unhallowed Essences set. Unhallowed Essences set is if you don't have the reflexes or multitasking talent to play Natalia's or the tactical sense or sentry timing aiming to play Marauders. It's stand in the corner of the screen and shoot to the other corner of the screen as fast as you can click the button, and occasionally put a left click in there to keep your focus and restraint up.
And also sometimes vault away to get the Zeiss buff.
To get a little further back, yeah. So I don't mind the UEs there, but UE is like the training wheels set for a Demon Hunter, and if it was 25% less effective, it would be fine with me. It's supposed to be the most overpowered skill set in the game right now for Demon Hunters, and using Multishot, which takes absolutely no skill to aim or use or control in any way.
Well,
Crickets.
I don't know. I like the UE set because I like hitting everything on the screen, but I mean, it's a little weird that they took a skill that was so popular in D2 that scaled, pretty well with your gear and what you were doing, to D3 where it was useless except for, that the one niche place where you could use it to refill your discipline when there are a lot of enemies on the screen, but it's largely useless for doing damage. They buffed it, still useless. I think they buffed it a second time, still useless. Then they designed the UE set, and it still was useless until they put in a specific quiver that makes it hit twice on enemies below 60% health, and a bow that makes you shoot 50% faster with it. And then it became what it is now, like Flux was saying, where it's super, super, super easy to play. One of the most efficient Torment 10 grinders, I believe.
And you have infinite resource with it, so you can vault forever, too.
I mean, part of it's because they added that vengeance to the... But I don't know. I love playing with it because it's fun to play, but it is a little disappointing that it went from... it doesn't scale well, and there's no skill involved in using it. Like you said, you just sort of right-click anywhere on the screen, and that giant cone flies out, and some rockets, maybe.
And you don't have to go back to town and buy arrows.
Yeah.
Because everybody loves that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it was really scientifically, like it rewarded clever play in Diablo 2, and now in Diablo 3 it's like the ultimate spam bot, whatever, if you don't want to have to, think while you're playing.
Well, in Diablo...
I've used it myself. I mean, you can just vault, blast, yeah. Vault, blast. Hey, I win.
In Diablo 2, you would never use it for a boss, right? That was just some clearing...
Well, to clear out the minions, you might use
right.
it. But yeah, you would never use it for single target. It was way too expensive.
Right.
But that was what was fun about it. You could put, 5 points in it and have 6 arrows, and then it was good for a small group. And if you were going to do cow level, you would get, items that procced something. There was a bow that procced, what the hell is the amplify damage on everything? It's been so long since Diablo 2, I don't remember. But you get, if you were just, I remember I had a character that used Eagle Horn in Diablo 2 just for cow levels. It was just sort of my fun cow level build.
Nice.
And I had, 15 points in Multishot, and every single cow I shot would proc, It was fantastic for huge hordes of weak monsters. It sucked for bosses, but you could just obliterate big packs of stuff. And, and it might have been better in Multishot if they had, 500% damage, and each point you put in, lowered your damage while adding an arrow, something like that. So you could you had to, determine if you were going to have higher damage or higher arrows, but not both. And in D3, all that thought is just gone, and now it's just hey, you can cover the whole screen and don't have to aim.
They had a lot of problem with spenders, especially in the early days. For the Demon Hunter.
Yeah. It was cost way too much hatred.
Right, it wasn't just multi-shot. For too little damage.
Right.
Yeah, that's stuff. I mean, Cluster Rare was useless forever. It was way too expensive, and it's a lot of balance. Anyway, number 1 on my should have been better, could have been better, I wish it worked better. Multishot was there just sort of as a hate fuck, to be perfectly honest, because I've been annoyed by UE set for a year and a half. I'm glad they fired John Yang because of it. Okay, that didn't actually happen, but it could have. My number 1, rapid fire. This is my skill that I would love it to work better, but it never has. I don't think it ever can, because it's never worth it. You're trading off... Rapid fire is like a machine gun, basically, if you don't play Demon Hunters. Shoots really, really fast. It's fantastic when you get it at level 11, because then it's you're instantly your best boss-killing damage skill. And you could use that while you power up for a while, but eventually it's never worth it, because you have to hold still to use it, as opposed to vaulting around or moving quickly and shooting giant bombs at stuff. And there's never been any useful, rain, tracking guided effect to rapid fire or shattering effect, so it's never been very good with AoE, even though one form is piercing, but not piercing enough. And I want it to work. I always love using it. I'm always happy with a Demon Hunter when I get to 11 and I finally get this skill. Or is it 9? I think it's 9 now.
They changed.
I think it's at I think it's at 13 when you get the first rune effect, which lowers the cost, and then you can really burn with it. And you said this was on your list, Aahz. Do you love rapid fire? Do you want it to work better?
Yeah, I had it as a great leveling skill. And when you had, it's kind of funny when I went to look this up, I'd forgotten that they changed this, but, I used web shot, right, in the old days, and you put web shot with Coal of the Week, and you could use that for, I don't know, a whole bunch of levels, almost all the way up to 60, and it would slow everything down, and then you also get the damage bonus with Coal of the Week, and now it's frost shots, I guess, was a cold. So it's definitely useful as a leveling skill, and there was a build way back in the day where you could do rapid fire with which one was it? The one with the grenades. That was reasonably effective, but pretty. That was a while ago, and ROS it's never been good.
But it should be.
It should be.
We've always wondered why they never made it work with Sentry. With Marauder Sentry, so the Sentries would actually fire rapid fire as well.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
That seems like that would be awesome. And my other thought for making it work, they made a crossbow at one point where it made you give more stacks, and the stacks went quicker again. And then there's some other change recently where there's some other item that also procs with it that makes your stacks go faster. I can't remember which one it is, but it just never works because I remember trying to use it when they first put in the way to make it give multiple stacks. And it was great, except that anything ever touched you would reset all your stacks and knock you backwards.
Right.
Any kind of knockback or any kind of hit. And I always thought if it worked like Taegooks used to work, where you got stacks and you just had to refresh it like every 2 or 3 seconds and they would keep working. Like if you could have kept up your 10 stacks of rapid fire or whatever, as long as you hit something new, at least you didn't go more than 2 seconds without using it. You could have vaulted and just kept rapid firing instead of always having the stacks reset to 0. It still wouldn't have worked, but it would have been closer, and I want it to work, and I still hope that maybe someday in some future patch there'll be a rapid-fire set that's as ridiculously overpowered as the UE set is today.
Yeah.
And then I won't complain because I like rapid-fire, and I think Multishot sucks, and it's different when I like it.
I remember when Reaper of Souls was being beta-tested, there was the Hellfire crossbow had the fireball proc added to it, and it wasn't restricted at all. It was just a percentage proc, no internal cooldown. So rapid fire was actually by far the best way to proc it, and in addition to shooting out tons and tons and tons and tons of arrows, you'd also be shooting out tons and tons of fireballs, and it was absurdly strong. But then they nerfed the proc considerably.
They took care of that problem.
Yeah, and so then all of a sudden rapid fire is no good.
And no good it has remained.
Yeah.
Why don't the Sentries and Marauders ever use rapid fire?
Yeah, I don't know.
Would that just be too much crap on the screen? It would break the game or what?
Yeah, maybe.
They let the wizards break it. I don't know why they couldn't let the demon hunters break it.
Because it's not a wizard, dude, obviously.
But it's the same type of deal with, channeling skills just have not... It's been too much of a conflict with their design that, you have to, you have to move. They said that at one point that we want to, Desecrator or whatever, we want to move you off that spot and not let you just stand there and kill stuff. And so with with channeling skills, you're never going to be able to make those two things compatible, I don't think.
And rapid fire also takes a long time to get to the target, as opposed to something like cluster arrow, or multi-shot, which is just instantly the full screen, pretty much.
Right.
So it has to build up, and then it doesn't pierce, and you pierce it with one rune effect, but it doesn't pierce very well, and it doesn't redirect. Yeah, it could be so much better. They just obviously no one's ever had the. It's funny, like you mentioned a second ago with the whole, like Wolfpaq was saying, how they had to add 10 items in 2 patches to make multi-shot work. You could make rapid fire good without. You wouldn't need an entire new item set and 2 special new items just to make rapid fire good. As you did with multi-shot. But
yeah, you
someday maybe someone will love it.
A belt and bracers probably. And the stacks is actually a good idea. That even if you get knocked back, you could just not lose them all.
And of course, Taegooks actually should be better for that now. It's a channeling skill, and Taegooks only goes to 10 instead of 1,000. So I've not tried it since then, but I just don't see any way it would ever compete. You can't. You just can't be stationary and not have full ranged screen stuff immediately. So. Anyway,
the crossbow for rapid fire, doesn't that stack a little bit? Is that what you're talking about?
Makes the stacks go faster. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Well, that is the stacks. There was no stacks before that. It used to be every 1 second it would add a stack to it up to 4. Now I think it's every half second.
Oh yeah.
So it's a little quicker to get to 4. So I guess you could get back to 4 pretty quickly. But of course, a crossbow shoots really slow to begin with.
Right.
If there was a version of it that made the projectiles move twice as fast, that would help a little bit just to get to the edge of the screen targets.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. There should be a rapid fire that shoots ball lightning. That would be pretty cool. Okay, I have my honorable mentions. I have a sentence about each of these. We can just zoom right through them unless you have some thoughts on them, guys, which is pretty likely. I'm pretty sure Smokescreen is my first honorable mention. That's on your list there, Aahz. This is the top. If there was a list that said the skill is much better than you would believe it is from the item description, from the skill description, this would be number 1.
Yeah.
Because the description just says invisible, and it took me 2 months after the game was released to finally try this skill and realize it's actually intangible and invulnerable, not just invisible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't walk through wallers and stuff. That was the one drawback to it in the old days. You would get stuck on other monsters. Even monster-like bodies would stick you with their big, hairy, fleshy tomes. Like being a girl in a subway car. But it's invisible, intangible, everything. And back when it was like a 3-second thing and a 1-second cooldown, it was like, hey, I'm just going to never get touched again.
Yeah, it was the perma invulnerable build.
And they've nerfed it a bunch of times, and now the cooldown doesn't go until the skill is done using, etc.
Right.
And they've made Vault much better over time, so pretty much everyone uses Vault now. But there are still some split screen users out there, and there's new ways, there's new items that give you that effect for free when you do the other one that gives you
Shadow Power.
Yeah, the Shadow Power that gives you DR and all kinds of other cool stuff. It gives you smokescreen as well now, and I'm sure there's some way to combine the two, and people have like defensive builds, but I'm not playing that build, so I don't know. So you had smokescreen on your top 10, Aahz. Any other?
Actually did not have.
You love it.
I did not have that one.
I'll make a new list. It was your number 11 skill, though.
It's my honorable mention.
Okay, moving on. Next honorable mention: preparation. Now it's basically optional and almost irrelevant because you can get resources in so many other ways, but back in the old days, remember in Diablo 3 Vanilla, if preparation was out and you were out of discipline, you died.
You died.
Yep.
That was pretty much it. You had very little discipline. You couldn't get bonus discipline on every other item. You couldn't get infinite free discipline from UE set, etc. And preparation was like essential. Battle Scars preparation, that was like your Demon Hunter hardcore mandatory.
Yeah, I think either Battle Scars or backup plan. You would, maybe go for, it'll just, maybe not empty, and I'll have some more.
Maybe.
But
no healing.
No healing, that's true. Battle Scars was very good for that.
Was healing. And now it's like you use it from like level 8 to about 20 because you just want to be able to vault a little more when you're first leveling up a new character, and after that it's like never on your bar again.
Well, then early in ROS, then it was a hatred generator.
Yeah, that got nerfed.
Right.
Yeah, that's when you would use all the time when you were trying to do Strafe or something like that.
No,
you would use it. It was
cluster,
a hatred refill.
Cluster arrow spam at the beginning of ROS. Yep.
With free per wraps.
Cha-ching. Okay, next one I mentioned, grenade. Another cool idea. Don't need a bow to use it. You can like aim to a spot. It's kind of like Multishot, where it's kind of an interesting hatred thing. You throw the grenades where you want. You can like bounce them off walls and stuff in the early days. There was no bow required. You could shoot out 3 of them at once. It was a really good generator for a while before Focus became the best one forever. Yeah, I mean, any of you guys ever really loved grenade? I remember Ellie used to play grenade nonstop. That was her favorite generator with a Demon Hunter back in the old days, which always seemed weird to me because like why? But people have different skills they like for different reasons, right?
Yeah, I don't.
Did you ever wish grenade was more awesome? There's a whole grenadier passive that just sort of exists there for this one skill.
Yeah, I used the grenade build. It was pre-ROS, I'm pretty sure, but it was pretty decent in hardcore. You use it with stun grenades, and you had your attack speed up really high, and you could just shoot a bunch of those out and stun a lot of stuff on the screen. So it was out there. I'm trying to remember what went along with it, which I can't. But I did use it for a month.
It was too powerful, right? It got nerfed.
Could be.
Like, it used to be, it was extremely strong. I'm trying to remember when this was. I think during ROS, though. And I think you were hitting, like, all 3 of the grenades, if you centered them right, was hitting the target. But then I think the Grenadier passive got nerfed. I'll go research this.
Too late now. Grenade, I remember initially in the game, like in the beta and stuff, and early release, grenade was like really hard to aim because it would always bounce like 3 times before it blew up.
Right.
So you had to like aim really close to you if you went to something halfway across the screen, that kind of stuff. And like you could like throw them right off the screen, they would vanish entirely, like down some hallway, like you never see it again. So they nerfed. I kind of like the aiming system early on. They had to bounce it off walls and stuff. It seemed like it was kind of a cool. The fantasy of the Demon Hunter, like you were this gadget master as well as an archer kind of thing. And of course, where you're throwing 100,000 grenades from into your cloak is a question, unless you're a female Demon Hunter, in which case it's pretty obvious where you're holding them all.
Yeah.
But the male is a little trickier that way.
In the early days, I gave up on it. I was not hitting anything, and that was the big reason that I didn't use it very much, like at launch.
Of course, the irony being that in real life, the saying is always, close only counts with horseshoes and hand grenades.
Right.
And it actually was really hard to hit shit with in Diablo 3 initially.
No.
Okay, my next honorable mention, Elemental Arrow. Was really cool for a while. I remember Ball Lightning was like the most fun thing ever when you first got it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like the very early days of Diablo 3, Nether Tentacles was good, and they've nerfed that. It's never been good again in 5 years.
Yep, it was good.
That was like the ultimate nerf. Most powerful skill in the game for one class, never useful since.
Yep.
But yeah, I remember Ball Lightning was just really fun when you first got it. You shoot these really slow, sizzly things. And then like in like Season 2 or 3, that was like the best DPS build for a while.
Right.
With the really super slow motion version of that with the quiver. And it's never really been that awesome since. So I remember for a while Frost Arrow was really awesome. It would like shatter to stuff and like stun everything. Elemental Arrow seemed like a pretty cool skill though. I like the big ground burning fire one was really awesome in all the initial videos. Like it looked cool graphically. But yeah, honorable mention. I mean, I don't have anything else. I haven't used it in 2 years, but it looks like it's got a lot of cool effects. Remember the one Screaming Skull thing would like zoom in on stuff and give you lifesteal?
I don't remember the lifesteal, but I definitely remember using the Screaming Skull as a fire rune. It was a fire. It was a good fire damage skill.
Yeah.
Have you used Elemental Arrow in the last 3 seasons?
No.
But back in the day, though, goddammit.
Right, Crider Shot, right? That was with Crider Shot, Screaming Skull. I think that was a build for a while on ROS.
Yeah, I remember Crider Shot was the best one forever. Once you got that, Elemental Arrow became a generator. And it was like, yeah, I'm just going to spam Ball Lightning forever now. I remember the Frozen one was fun, too. But anyway.
Hey, can I talk about Grenadier real quick?
Yes.
Because I found it.
Nice.
Originally in ROS, I don't remember if this was in beta or at the beginning, Grenadier increased the damage of grenade by 20% and the explosion radius by 40%. Both of those were cut in half to what we have now, 10% and 20% instead of 20 and 40. So there was a time, and this might have just been in beta because I can't remember now, but there was a time when grenades were so awesome that they had to nerf the passive by 50%, the opposite of Jay Wilson.
They Wilsoned it.
Yeah.
They reverse Wilsoned it.
Yeah. So anyways, I knew it was nerfed. I just can't remember when. I found it.
It's 4 years
I found
ago.
your post, Flux, on September 15th, 2013.
Well, at least someone remembers.
Yeah.
It's funny whenever I search for like old stuff and you see posts you wrote yourself and you have absolutely no memory of them in any way. Sometimes when you go on the web internet for too long.
Yeah.
I used to do this blog forever, it was like very active. Aahz used to read that one forever ago. And I would all the time like write something and not remember reading it. I would go read my archives from like a year ago. I'm like, oh, that's a really good point. Oh, I made that. Like I had absolutely no recollection of ever saying it before in my life. Movie reviews, I would see a movie and like, oh, this game's kind of familiar. And I go look and I'd written a review of it like 3 years ago. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I did see that before.
I've seen it.
Yeah, and I've forgotten all about it totally. Yeah. Anyway, it sucks getting old.
Yeah, it gets worse as you get older.
But as we talk about this, I think this was a change that happened in beta because I remember thinking, man, grenades are so awesome now. They were never useful in vanilla, and now they're amazing. I'm going to totally run this build when the game goes live. And then they just ruined it by ruining Grenadier.
And they reverse Wilsoned it. Meanwhile, they doubled every barbarian skill. So
yeah,
yes.
And they didn't let anybody know. And then the day of the ROS launch, it was nerfed, just like the barb bracers.
Oh, is that what happened?
No.
Thanks, Obama.
I just like reminding the barbs of that horrible situation.
That horrible.
They like being reminded too. Luckily, barbarians don't remember anything more than like 2 months ago because they're like cavemen. They just like smash things. Okay, my last honorable mention before we get to the actual best skills. There are some left we haven't talked about yet, if you believe it or not. March for Death. It's a really cool concept skill. The Demon Hunter like targets a single thing, and like you use the skill on them, and then you take a lot more damage. It was cool at first. It seemed like a CC skill, but it's just a straight damage skill. I like that it seems like it would be like a curse or like a control. It's like, no, it's just, I'm just going to burn you to death. I'm just going to give you massive, massive damage buff. And then it was kind of fun to use occasionally. Like you had to be really like real coordinated to get that quickly on a boss before you started nuking the boss. And then, of course, they put this as a free skill from the proc of Calamity, the crossbow, and no one's ever put it on their skill bar since.
Yeah. Well, there used to be the... people really liked Mortal Enemy, the one that returns hatred.
Right.
Didn't that used to allow cluster bomb spam? Or it was a big part of it, I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, you would use that rune solo, and then if you were in a group, you would use the one that increased the damage. Contagion, probably.
Yeah, so basically you had to, it was like a curse effect, essentially, like a necromancer skill, and you had to put stuff on it quickly, and then when you hit them, you got your hatred back and such. So it basically required skill and talent and timing and forethought, which of course is why it's no longer in the game.
Too hard.
It rewarded playing intelligently. Nerf it. Let's just put it on a crossbow for free all the time, and then I'll be much better that way. Thanks, Jay.
And one of the rare crossbows, too.
There are no rare crossbows in the game. They're all common. Okay, yeah, actually, for a while, Calamity was super hard to find, and now it's like, yeah, whatever. I was thinking about that playing yesterday. I was playing this weekend recently, and just wondering, like the old days, where remember when it was like hard to find certain items, like really hard to find certain items?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like easy to find everything, and then the challenge is finding it with a perfect roll.
And ancient.
But and with 3 sockets, and possibly 4 sockets if you get the right bow on Calamity, the death roll, and the bug, and it's on the auction house. But do you guys? I mean, this is something off topic, but do you guys miss having items that were really hard to find? And I guess it's better. People seem to like it more when you can find whatever you need. It was no fun doing a whole season and not finding the one item you had to get for the build you wanted to play, right?
Well, this is the thing with the way they changed legendary items to roll like rares, which they still do. I mean, they have that backup, that secondary orange text or whatever, but I mean, when you are going to make 3 or 4 random affixes, you need to be able to find as many of them as you want. Like in Diablo 2, everything had pretty much set affixes. I mean, there was maybe one, like enhanced damage. You want that to roll 200 or 400 or whatever. But like other than that, I don't know. I really don't like the way they did legendaries in this game. And I think that's a leftover effect from vanilla, is that since you have to roll them 100 times to get the one you want, you have to be able to find them 100 times in a reasonable amount of playtime. Otherwise, you're never going to, we need the auction house back,
Yeah, and in Season 2, was it Season 2? I think it was. That was a short one. I never found that second Unity, which seems almost impossible now. But at that time, you couldn't really push Greater Rifts unless you had double Unity. And so, yeah, with the seasons, I think you do have to be able to find the items that you want to use for your build.
And you just have to get them with a good roll now, so.
Right.
This is ironic given that I'm like Paragon 430 this season from only playing the past week or so, and I still don't have a decent focus. So I'm not using the focus restraint build at all because I keep waiting to find a good I have like 9 good restraints,
It's the way it always... I had that this season where I had like 9... foci in my stash and 0 restraints. I was like, come on, you're killing me here. And then the next 9 I found were all restraints. So, RNG.
Need to be able to re-roll your restraint. 50-50 chance.
If only there was like a recipe in the cube where you could like put a setup in and get another item from that same set.
Yeah, but it doesn't work with rings, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't work with 2 item sets. That's a problem.
Or I could put 3 in. I would put 3 in to get 1,
Yeah, you would put 10 of them in to get one. What else is there?
Yeah, I mean, at some point, right, we should be able to.
Just useless. Who cares? You just throw them away. They're just souls at that point.
Yeah.
Okay, my top 10 Demon Hunter skills. I did not rank these in order because as I got to this list, I noticed these are basically the same as my first list of should be better but aren't, except that these are pretty good but could be a little bit different and I like it more. Luckily, I am much smarter than all the developers working on the actual game, so my ideas are always much better for the skills.
They're hiring.
Like every other asshole with a podcast and or a Facebook page.
Oh, yeah.
So these are ones that I think are really awesome but could be a little different or whatever. Number 1 is probably your top of your list, Aahz, Laz, brother. Vault!
Number 1.
Everyone's favorite Demon Hunter movement skill.
Which rune did you pick?
Nice cost benefit, very quick movement, repositioning, not super powerful. I mean, you couldn't go over Waller for a long time. Now you kind of can. You can go through other stuff, but it used to be harder to go through some things. It used to be scary to use it because it cost like a third of your discipline every time,
right.
And you would like run out. Like we were saying earlier in D3 Vanilla, preparation is out. You're out of discipline. Now you die.
Dead.
The one drawback I have for Vault, they never really figured out anything to make the other rune effects that interesting or change the style of it.
Well, they did. Briefly.
Here's my punchline. My post says everyone just uses Tumble, no one uses anything else, no one cares. And then Aahz sent me his top 10, and he has another one listed instead of Tumble. So apparently you disagree that there are other rune effects that are useful in Vault other than that one.
Yeah, I really like Rattling Roll, and I always have
Which is the one that shoots a couple of knives out when you do it?
No, this is the one that stuns.
No one uses that skill. Get out of here.
In hardcore, I thought that was always pretty useful because if the phase beast or whatever would teleport onto you, you could get some distance with Vault. Plus, you'd stun them for a second, let you get some more damage out. I've almost always used
everything in the game is even a one-shot kill, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly you can make that argument now, but I thought Rattle and Roll was pretty well implemented, and it was a good strategic rune.
It sounded like you had another rune effect you liked there, Wolfpaq.
Well, yeah, for a while, Trail of Cinders was super powerful. And then...
It only burns like a tenth of a second, though.
Well, they nerfed it. They nerfed it by like 20%. They're like, triple J. Wilson did.
Triple anti-Wilson did.
Triple reverse J. Wilson. And so it's like, yeah, so now, of course, no one uses it. But for a while there, when I was trying to stack resource cost reduction, specifically with Fire and Cinder Coat, Trail of Cinders was actually cheaper than Tumble. And so, I mean, even though the damage was crap, you might as well use the one that's the most efficient use of your discipline. But
it looks sexy, though. It left its Trail of Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Blizzard claimed that was a mistake. And I don't know, I won't say a bug, but that somebody looked at the table wrong and put it in the code wrong.
Yeah, well,
over 5 seconds, and they multiplied it by 5.
Well, nowadays it would fit right in with what we
That's true. That's very true.
They should make that part of the Shadow Power set or something, because you're actually close range and you're vaulting over things. That would actually mesh with that set nicely.
Yeah.
That's true. That's good.
Which means it'll never happen.
Right.
Well, there's nobody to put it in
next
the game
up,
now anyway.
I'm actually I was gonna say my next one should be the number 1, but I'm gonna save it and talk about it later because it should be the number 1. Next up, Chakram. Chakram, fun skill. Another one that's kind of clever and interesting in terms of it doesn't require a bow. It throws out this big giant, spinning energy star thing. Obviously, the Chakram we were initially thinking of are like little ninja stars, but in Diablo 3 they're these giant magical things. It's kind of cool in that you can't aim it exactly. It doesn't just go right to the target. They all make these weird, looping, spiraling kind of shapes. The one that's really useful when you're leveling up is Double Chakram, which kind of does 2 loops at once, and each one does full damage. Yeah, so I like the idea of Chakram. It's kind of cool that it aims in interesting ways. It pierces everything, but it doesn't. You can't stack a bunch of them on the same target. So you had Chakram on your list, Aahz. What do you like about it?
Yeah, I had it on my list. It's fun. It looks good. I had twin Chakrams as well as the rune, and really enjoyed using it. And that was actually just last season. That was a build with the Marauder set. You could do a Chakram build.
Yeah, the one really slow-moving, long-distance one was the thing, right? It kind of just sat on things?
Yeah, I think so. Well, no, I think it was one that he threw out. I can't remember. I used it for a couple weeks, but it still wasn't as good as the Cluster Arrow build of Space on the Mana Core. It still wasn't as good as Mana Core, so I went back to it.
And they have a new item where your Chakram damage goes up every second or whatever, right? It's every point of hatred.
Yeah, it's every point of hatred. And you use it with, or at least I used it with the Traveler's Pledge, Amulet and Compass Rose. So it worked those 2 items in too. I can't remember what.
Yeah, but I like Chakram in general, just that it aims a little bit differently, that it moves through things, that it's always piercing. It's not opposed to just one giant target hitting. It's kind of an interesting variety of things.
Agreed.
So give it points for that, even though I haven't used it all that much except for leveling. Okay, next one up, Companion. We were talking about a lot of the stuff about mantras and auras and war cries and how they're never really that cool, and probably Demon Hunter is the coolest one. And of course, this one was pretty much crap initially because it was just a war cry skill. You had this pet, but it was totally non-effective. It just sort of flew around or whatever. And then at some point, I think it was an ROS or they made them actually work as tanks.
Yeah.
At least the bull and the wolf.
Seems like it was ROS, but it could have been before that. I don't know, because I remember using Boar for defense. He used
but I mean,
Bat
they have
for
a nice buff of each. And they just made them much better when they're all tanks now, at least the bottom 2 are. And of course the ferrets were always awesome for the gold pickup, even though they don't give you enough of a buff to the gold damage its gold drop itself. But then of course the Companion became ultimately awesome once they gave the Marauder set a big upgrade, and you got all effects of Companion at once. Which is like getting all the effects of Enya at once, but it's really cool instead of just being stupid and clogging your entire buff bar.
Yeah, it is cool, and getting all the effects that's actually kind of strategic as well. I'll say, okay, I'm gonna use some hatred, and then I'll hit my Companion, get that hatred back, and get some more damage. And you didn't want to necessarily use it right at the beginning of the fight.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna hang up on Wolfpaq, see if we can add him back in again here. He's been disconnected or something.
No, I'm back.
Oh, you're there? All right, cool.
I had to run away.
You had to run away.
Yeah.
You need more Asian food. Okay, so we were saying how Companion's awesome and it's the best of the aura-type Warcry skills. Do you have any disagreement to that point?
Wait, say that again?
Companion?
Companion, yeah, it's a great skill.
Makes wolves and stuff appear?
Yeah.
Initially it was crap, and then they made the wolf and the boar actually work as tanks, and it became awesome. And then, of course, Marauders made it spectacular when you get all of them at once.
Yeah.
It is the coolest implementation of a Warcry-type skill in the game.
I'll agree with that. Because you actually have something out on the screen howling rather than just your character shouting or something.
But it doesn't, it has basically the same kind of effects. Passive buffs, you get an active buff. Everyone loves, it's actually quite strategic using the, what is it, the ferret one that picks up every health globe on the screen.
Yeah.
When you're still using Marauders, not what the hell, the Reaper's Wraps, or else the what's the passive, Blood Vengeance.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it grabs every health. Yeah, it grabs every health globe on the screen. It's basically instant full hatred regen when you have one of those items in effect, which can be strategic. The little spiderweb jism everywhere thing is kind of cool too. I mean, it actually slows everything. You kind of forget that's even part of the skill at this point, but it's kind of nice when you have 1,000 monsters on the screen and you pump that. But kind of like other stuff, now that the cooldown reduction is so overpowered and so everywhere, you can just sort of have companion almost 100% of the time. The active buff of it. Remember, it used to be 30 seconds. You had to wait and wait and wait and wait. Hey, finally I can do it again. And now it's it's been 11.5 seconds. Let's do another one. Do you like it because it has your spirit animal involved, Wolfpaq?
Yeah, I do. And I like the Cloak of the Garwolf, or whatever.
So now you actually have a Wolfpaq then.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure that's a tribute to me.
Gotta be.
They should they make one of the gold items in the game, like gold wrap or something, or gold skin, give you triple the amount of ferrets?
I think so.
And it would be a bonus just for Marauders using Demon Hunters, and you would have 6 ferrets at once. What if 2 of them were fat and fluffy and they called them chinchillas? Would that make it even better?
That would make me very happy.
Except they wouldn't actually do anything. They just kind of lie there and roll around in space, right? They wouldn't actually go pick up gold because chinchillas are lazy.
Yeah, they would search for dust and roll around in it.
Exactly. Hit the corner of the screen rolling some skeleton bones.
Yeah.
Say, get some gold, asshole. Nope, sorry. Time to roll.
They're over in Act 2. In the desert.
They're like an entire act behind you at all times. And when they die, they make a really attractive pair of gloves, so that's also a bonus.
There you go.
Okay, next up, awesome skills, Cluster Arrow. Never liked this in D2, in D3 early days. Too much damage, but it was really slow to use. You had to aim it just right, but it got massive explosion effects. And like many other things, they made it, now it's so easy to use, it's ridiculous. Now they all send out little homing tentacles, and they made a bunch of items that greatly reduce the hatred costs. You can cast them non-stop. So in the old days, it was really expensive. You had to aim it just right, or it was nothing. And now it is no longer expensive, and you don't have to aim it just right. Other than that, though,
which one do you like?
Well, I mean, I think the most fun one is Maelstrom, because you get 1,000 little cold things and everything gets slow. But of course, the physical one does more damage. I think the ones that punish you for aiming should be more powerful. Like the fire one, the main one that everyone uses forever was loaded for bear, which is the biggest damage. But now that you have all these little tentacles with the other ones, they're much more effective on the whole. I always wish there was a much clearer visual of the radius of effect when you actually cast the damn thing. Like if there was a shaded area of 10 yards wide or something like that.
So you knew, yeah.
So you could actually tell if you'd hit stuff or not, because it just sort of blows up where it is and all this crap flies out around it, and it's kind of hard to tell if you're actually hitting stuff with it sometimes.
Well, I remember in vanilla, cluster bombs was useful with, I think that was the one I was talking about, with the Marked for Death rune, Mortal Enemy or whatever, that returned hatred, because it would drop
like a million little bombs.
A million little bombs. I'm pretty sure each one returned hatred. So it was the only way you could spam it on enemies that had huge hit point or huge hitboxes. And
you had to aim it just right too.
Who's the Act 2 boss? Who is such a hassle?
Belial.
Belial, yeah. I remember I would sit over in the corner, hope he ignored me, and mark him for Mortal Enemy, and just start launching and hope that was able to get us through. But yeah, those. Mm-hmm. I don't think anyone uses that anymore, right? It's none of the ones you just mentioned are cluster bombs because it's so hard to aim. That was the downside. You need something with a huge hitbox in order to get reasonable damage out of it.
Well, the cluster became super awesome with Marauders once the sentries shot it too.
Yeah.
And you just got this ridiculously stacking damage.
That's right.
And of course, sentries can't exactly aim accurately, so
right.
They just shoot big blasts and you hope it hits something. Which is why all the ones with tentacles and stuff and send out little homing tendrils work so well now because of the sentries to them too.
I see.
Okay, next one. Reign of Vengeance, number 2. I have one to go after this, so we're almost done, believe it or not. Reign of Vengeance, awesome concept. We'll fight in the shade if the arrows come down, etc. It was really cool in the old days, but of course it was never any good until Reaper of Souls. And then it got awesome with an Natalia set that enabled you to cast it all the time and made the damage vastly buffed. And now, like a lot of other skills, it's a little bit too easy now. So It auto-aims for you. You can cast it all the time. The previously 30-second cooldown is like 3 seconds now. But for a while, it was really cool. And there was a build for a while where it was a really awesome... The fire one that had the knockback.
Yeah.
That was like the whole build. It was super hard to play right. You had to just aim it just perfectly. You were kind of juggling these huge rows of monsters all at once, and if you missed one shot, they would all just trample you and you'd be dead in 1 second. But Ring of Vengeance is mainly cool because of the crashing rain build that gives you this, huge damage to a single targeted spot, and then all the AoE comes over the top of it afterwards.
Yeah, I didn't have it on my list just because I hardly ever use it until Natalia's. But there was that build for a while, I remember, with the knockback. And probably I gave up on it because it was too hard.
I played that a bunch. It was really hard. You had to use it with Taegooks, and you had to use nonstop focus, and it was like you would just sort of spin with Strafe, and then you'd left-click for your generator, and then you'd bang one of these Ring of Vengeances, and you'd spin and left-click and bang, and you had to just ride it. The resource was really hard to keep it up enough. Remember when resource was hard to maintain? You couldn't just always have full resource at 100% of cooldown?
I do remember.
And then it got Wilson.
Those were dark days.
Having to actually think when you played to make it work right.
Yeah. Well, when ROS first came out, I used the cluster arrow load for bear, and yeah, you had Blood Vengeance, you had Reaper's Wraps. You were still running out.
You were using Punish, right? The preparation Punish.
Yeah, right, exactly. But you had to build it up, and then time okay, I'm going to burst this down, and then I'll build up. So there was still some strategy of when you spent it. But you at least, in ROS, you at least got enough damage for your hatred spent.
And now you just have everything all times.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You just seethe.
I seethe with fury and vengeance. Okay, my number one I was going to mention earlier, but it's backed it up. Strafe. This was always our dream in Diablo 3 Vanilla. Someday there'll be a build you can actually strafe for more than 3 seconds without using every bit of your hatred, and then you would use so much hatred with this.
Was it even 3 seconds?
You would empty your bulb, and it would actually go into negative, like a negative bulb for 3 seconds, and it would take you 2 minutes to refill your bulb. That's how much hatred strafe used back in the old days. That's how I remember it being anyway, and it must be true because I remember it that way.
It was unusable.
But it was so awesome when you did it for a half a second. It was like every barrel on the screen would die in a tenth of a second.
That's true.
Yep.
And then Strafe finally became useful when they put in Natalia's build, and you get some cooldown, you get some resource cost reduction, and then of course you could use Ring of Vengeance nonstop with it. And now it's only good if you use Natalia's. It's a lot of fun, really fast movement build. It is somewhat reduced in value since the UE set gives you essentially infinite vaulting potential, so that's also faster than you can do with this set. But this one's fun to aim, and Strafe. They keep trying to make it useful. They put the crossbow in where it pierces, but no one cares because Strafe doesn't do any actual damage. You just use Strafe as a movement skill, and it's a way to reset your cooldown on Ring of Vengeance so much.
Yeah.
The other really fun thing with Strafe, if you level up a new Demon Hunter and you have a Gem of Gem of Ease.
Mm-hmm.
Gem of Ease in your crossbow, even if you don't have the one that does Strafe, just any ancient one-handed crossbow or something, and you're level 30. And you have a 3,400 DPS ancient crossbow, you can just absolutely one-shot the entire screen in a tenth of a second forever from level 30 to 60. It is so fun to level up with this item. I recommend you go out and kill your Demon Hunter off right now, and then just make a Gem of Ease and try a new one. And you can go from level 10 to 50 with using just this one skill and absolutely one-shotting the entire screen instantaneously at all times. And if that's not fair, what isn't?
Yeah, it's also used in a Legacy of Nightmares build. You use Strafe and actually the Fortress Ballista. So you're building up shields and trying to keep yourself constantly shielded.
I don't like that.
I know. It's not as cool as Natalia's when the crashing
Demon Hunters shouldn't be shielded. You're supposed to be a low damage kite. You're supposed to be a high damage, low DPS kite everywhere.
But you're strafing. You're kiting with Strafe.
Not when you have 14 shields on you. Of course, meanwhile, I've been playing with 290 million toughness all season because you have 14 items now that buff your toughness at all times. Other than that, though,
UE
sucks. I should get out of the game. When they fired John, I can understand it now. You have any Strafe thoughts there, Wolfpaq?
I haven't had as much fun playing with Strafe as you have, but now I'm motivated to go out and try it.
Apparently, Natalia's is kind of an acquired taste. I know a lot of people play Demon Hunters and don't like Natalia's very much.
I've tried it every season since it since it came out and was remade, but I haven't really gotten into it.
I found a really nice Crashing Rain belt last season. So I use Natalia's for like up to say 50s. So when you're leveling the gems early, I would use Natalia's, and then I would switch to Marauders for the when I was doing 60s to get it to the last bit to augment with.
Yeah, before they buffed the UE so much, Natalia's was by far the best build for like T10, when you could just really fast farming. Actually, it wasn't that good on T10. T6 days, it was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
The damage tends to trail off a little bit. You could use the physical form, and you have the form of Rain of Vengeance that hits everything on the screen, just tracking damage. And you could just vault, and you were so fast using the movement skill, and you're constantly hitting everything on the screen for low-level damage. You would use that with like Pain Enhancer, so you're constantly getting crits on everything, and they're all damaging, draining. And it was just so fast to move around and zipping. It was by far the fastest movement Demon Hunter build ever to that point. And of course now UE greatly outpaces it with Infinite Discipline. But anyway, one of many reasons I resent the UE set. Any other Demon Hunter thoughts, guys? I don't have any. Did I get every skill in your top 10 list there, Aahz, I assume?
Yeah, I think
my top 50 covered all your top 10?
We covered them all.
Any of you guys even remotely give a shit about Spike Trap anytime ever in the game?
No.
But now it's all buffed and stuff. There's new items for it next season.
I think I tried it. The one where the bomb would move to extra monsters when it exploded. I tried that one for a while. Didn't last very long.
You're not inspired by all the new Spike Trap items?
Wolfpaq?
I tried the one that was sticky bomb to make it, kept on spreading. But until there's really some sort of a working into the various sets, a direct working, I just don't see the point. Isn't there something that makes the spikes taunt or something?
Don't know, don't care.
Yeah, I think I tried. I know I tried it, and I just couldn't make it useful or work, so I gave up.
Yeah. I mean, in the early days, Spike Traps was a thing, right? Because you would put out all three of them and get them to explode at once. Yeah. You're trying anything to use hatred effectively, so.
Yeah, you try to, if you put it in a corner, it wouldn't spread out as much.
Right. Placement was somewhat important, but it was even then it was still pretty random.
Have we talked about Sentry yet? Did I step out for that?
Do you like
mention it briefly?
Do you like Sentry?
It was in my honorable mentions. It was boring. It was I think I might have skipped it. It's in my honorable mentions. My whole sentence. Honorable mention since it was boring and unimaginative, just a dumb version of Hydra until Marauders made the Sentries fire your spenders, which is an awesome innovation.
It is.
That was my entire note on Sentry.
It is. I had hopes that Sentry could be as useful as the traps that the Lightning Assassin could do in D2, and I'm disappointed that those hopes were not realized.
Well, when you get Marauder set, they're pretty cool, but...
Yeah, no, I mean, when they would...
So then it was just crap.
Yeah, for a while there, they would fire automatically, right? Whatever spenders you had equipped.
Yeah, there's some randomness to it, but there wasn't any... The damage was minuscule, so...
Oh, okay.
It wasn't until Marauders that made the damage increase greatly with each one, and I mean, obviously your damage increases for each additional Sentry you have.
Yeah, but they wouldn't fire until you did, right?
Yeah, now they don't fire until you do, so they're organized. They follow instructions.
Yeah, I guess that is good. They'll aim where you aim.
Just like chinchillas. They do what you want.
No, that's the opposite of chinchillas. They
okay.
wander around ignoring you.
I remember once, long ago on a podcast, I mentioned how, if you love something, you set it free, if it comes back, it's yours, and you're like, that doesn't work on chinchillas. That's why we have Wolfpaq on the podcast, to make chinchilla jokes.
No, I think they definitely improved it with firing the spenders when you fired, as opposed to, for a while there, it was just cast them and then get the heck away from them, and get away from the monsters, too.
And initially, remember when Marauders was first in there, the Sentries did most of the damage.
Yes.
So you would just cast them around a corner and just sit there playing with your balls and wait for them to die thing. And he's like, okay, the Sentries, put another one over there in the corner. I'll just kind of stand here for 5 minutes. And then they made a big change to it, obviously, where the Sentries buff your damage, and so the Sentries are kind of a support thing now.
And do you have
any other active? I have a couple of brief ones on Demon Hunter passives, but I have no other active skills.
That was the only active I wanted to talk about.
You're a Sentry, and you're like, we're not going to miss Sentry, not on my watch.
No.
Aha.
Anyway, okay. Demon Hunter passives, we had a lot of talk. We've done briefly covering passives, other classes, and the main takeaway was that the monk ones are still all horrible. Sentry ones Demon Hunter ones are not bad. I mean, there's like a nice variety of types of damage. By types of damage, I mean types of damage. Some of them are individual things. Some of them are more damage when you're further away. Some of them are more damage when stuff is cold. There's a nice kind of variety of things.
Yeah.
There's also some that give you some CC. There's ones that give you defense. There's one that give you movement. And there's a nice mixture of passives that give you general purpose, like it buffs damage to everything, or else ones that do specific skill buffs, like Grenadier, your favorite one, Wolfpaq?
Well, it was awesome.
Awesome. My main complaint about Demon Hunter passives is that there are so many that are so good it makes a goddamn Hellfire Amulet basically mandatory.
True.
So I have to hunt the fucking things for the entire season and never get a good one.
It's going to be easier in Season 7.
And they've made it a lot easier to hunt the damn things, but that was the joke last show, like when we were mentioning the monk skills, and I think Captain Goldfish was on here. I'm like, have you ever used Hellfire Amulet with your monk? And he's like, why?
Yeah.
There aren't any good passives. Who cares? So that's the one drawback of Demon Hunter passives. There's enough good ones that you actually have to get a Hellfire Amulet.
Yeah.
Any disagreement to that one?
I completely agree. There's a lot of good ones. You can't fit them all in the ones that you want. And even like Perfectionist, I mean, that's a really good defensive
buff, yeah.
Hot Pursuit, that helps for movement for bounties and such, or a tactical advantage, I mean. So it's a good buff, not like the monks. It's just, like you said, 10% or something on a pair of boots. So, yeah, there are a lot of good ones, and it does make the Hellfire Amulet necessary.
They added... do you remember when they added brooding or changed brooding? Because brooding was always there, but...
It was when they tried to make a rapid fire function.
So,
mantle the channeling, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not as... that's an unfortunate one, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Brooding needs a damage buff as well. It should give you damage buff as well as the regen while you're standing still.
Yeah.
The problem with brooding is it only works with rapid fire, basically, and then if you get hit, you get knocked out of your rapid fire stacks. So it's like, great, thanks.
Yep.
Maybe brooding could be the one that fixes that. It gives you, the regen, and it gives you more damage buff stacks, and it makes you not lose your stacks if you get hit while you're brooding.
There you go.
Sounds good to me.
Basically, Demon Hunters like to... I think they made a Demon Hunter skill and called it brooding. It's just so appropriate. It's like if it was a Batman passive, it would definitely be brooding. My one other thought on Demon Hunter passives is there's some unintended consequences in some weird ways. Like, Cull the Weak illustrates that well. That's probably like the most effective Demon Hunter passive. It's 20% damage buff to things that are chilled.
Mm-hmm.
Which means every single Demon Hunter uses cold damage. You mentioned that with your rapid fire leveling up skill in the old days of.
Yes. Yeah.
Obviously, does anybody not use Polar Station sentries at this point?
That's what I use.
Because you put them on top of monsters and it gives you Cull the Weak.
Yep.
So what if there were... what if instead of Cull the Weak, what it was called, Tweak the Geek or something, and every time you use lightning damage, it gave you a 20% IAS buff or something like that? Would everybody in the game have always been using 20% lightning? You want lightning damage on Demon Hunter, you want to shock things all the time, and it makes your attacks much faster, so you're doing a whole different build because you can shoot really fast now.
Use it.
It's like...
Use it with Strafe.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's just like, I'm not saying they should add this passive, but it's just funny to think that if this one skill was different, would that totally change the way you play Demon Hunters in some way? It would make you want to use different elemental types, make you use different rune effects. It would make your play style different. Instead of being able to stop things, you would have to keep moving all the time.
Well, and way back when, Sharpshooter was mandatory. Because it was hard to get critical hit, so almost everybody had that on their bar.
I always thought it was overrated.
Well, true, but how else?
I always knew better than the masses. That's such a curse being me. Always being one step ahead of the rest of you guys. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Yeah, I don't know. The other one I was thinking, what if they made something like... Remember back when... Initially in the game, like in pre-beta even, every elemental effect had a different property when you would critical hit something. Like lightning would shock them and stun them, and like fire would cause them to burn and give them DOT. Like, what if they still had something like that, and instead of Cull the Weak, there was some, Burn the Freak, or whatever. I'm not sure why they have to rhyme, but there they are. And it was, 20% damage buff to burning targets, instead of 20% damage buff to chilled targets. Now, every Demon Hunter is trying to use fire stuff. You want, Cinder Coat all the time. It's like, they could have like another passive that did that, and it would make a totally different build option. We've all just kind of grown used to the fact that Cull the Weak is the one that gives you the damage buff.
Well, yeah, that would require, actual game mechanics to support the item mechanics, which just aren't there.
You can't have that.
But would it really change anything, or would you just pick a different rune on Cluster Arrow?
You would, but the cold one obviously makes a difference because you're chilling stuff. It's a CC effect,
right?
So it basically encourages you to use a chilling effect with your Demon Hunter at all times because it gives you a damage buff as well. But I don't know. I'm not saying they should change it. It's just you could think if that skill wasn't the way it was, nobody would ever use Polar Station now. I mean, maybe it would get a little bit of a CC, but it wouldn't give you the damage buff as well. There'd be a trade-off.
Yeah.
I remember I used to love, before they made UE set, I used to try to do, you could do multi-shot with sentries, and it wasn't as effective as Cluster Arrow, but it was like incredible screen spamming insanity. And the fire effect, the fire rune on sentries makes them shoot out little homing missiles as well. So it's actually more damaging, but it doesn't make up for the damage buff you get with Call the Weak, and of course the CC effect as well. So there would just be different builds and different options, except that, one passive is enhancing, is making a big premium on using cold stuff.
I'm nodding my head right now.
Next patch.
Okay, we all agree.
They'll fix that next patch.
The massive Diablo 3 development team will just get right on implementing that one.
You got it. And they'll put a chess piece in that will actually help you with cold and lightning, just like Cindercoat.
Yeah, now look at Frostburns or Frost Guards.
Oh, yeah.
They finally gave cold damage to it.
Frostburn gauntlets might be used.
Is there any build in the game now that uses a RORG anymore?
Yeah.
Yeah, wizards use it.
Helltooth and
you get two different sets going at once occasionally.
Yeah.
No, for the Witch Doctor anyway, it's to get two different pieces that buff your pet's damage. So Mask of Jerem and Tasker and Theo, you want to get both of those in the build.
The wizards
use there is still some use for it.
Yeah.
So you just put it in your cube though.
Cube, yeah.
Yeah, because the stats are so bad on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was just wondering if they could. I mean, I just think there's not a lot of think about Frostburns or Mage Fists or Cindercoat or a lot of sets you just wear the whole 6-piece set now, and you just have other crap tacked around it, and your cube's got like convention of elements or something. So many builds, at least Demon Hunter builds are mostly doing that. I was just wondering, it's funny, for so long Rorg was like absolutely mandatory. We all bitched about how you had to use it all the time, and now it's like, hey, they should make this everything better. We can start using it again.
Well, a lot of it was the addition of the cube made it a lot less necessary. I think.
Yeah, and you can put it in the cube too if you want to.
Yeah, if you want to.
Well, focus on restraint and then convention of elements that just change the meta. So, because the Rorg stats are so bad, you got better buffs with those other two.
But I can imagine, if they made a better stats on Rorg, give it a fifth property that is always a socket or something like that, maybe you'd actually be farming them again. I guess some builds are still using it, so I guess it doesn't need to be buffed or modified. But
well, and you get it anyway because you have to get bounty mats. So if you get enough bounty mats, you're eventually going to get one. You have to
if you just wait and I've gotten each Heraldric cache from each act twice this whole season. I waited and did them until I could do T7, and then I got 8 for each in a multiplayer with a multiplayer game with someone else farming.
Sure.
And I did one other game on T10 and got 10 of each, and that's been all I've needed for my cube stuff. Obviously, I haven't played a ton this season, but you don't really need to cube more than 15 items for a season unless you're just going for the achievements, right?
No. Once you get your gear up to a certain point, you're usually
you got to re-roll legendaries too.
You're trying to get an ancient version of what you need for your build, and that's 5 a pop, 5 a roll. Plus, 50 souls? Is a bunch of souls, too. So, no, there's still you still need the bounty mass if you're gonna push Griffs.
Yeah, so far this whole season, I have done each act twice each, and I've got like 8 of each of all 5 of the bounty mats still. So I haven't done any farming whatsoever for Rorgs or anything else. But if I had more than 9 days left in the season and time to play, I guess I'd probably start doing some of that.
Season 7.
I'm trying to get ancients and enhancements and shit. But yeah, any final thoughts, guys? Anything else on Demon Hunter, or are there stuff you're looking forward to last week of the season here? Week and a half?
No, I think you covered everything for me.
Yep. We're trying for a 75 before the when is it, 12th, 22nd, whenever it is.
But you're doing that with UE, so it's like a 10% reduction.
I'm playing.
You actually get.
I'm playing Barb this season. I'm all about the bar.
That's right. Well, whatever. I don't care about barbs. Are they still dumb and smelly?
As far as I know.
As far as you can tell. Just get a clothespin on your nose and power up some levels. Okay, you have like 3 hours left of Double Shards weekend, so jump in there, guys. It's 8:48 Western time, so it's late for you, Aahz, but you can still do some shards there, Wolfpaq, if you hurry.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, guys, thanks for your time. You've been listening to the Diablo 3 podcast. We are online at diabloii.net and YouTube or iTunes or whatever. Don't care. Patreon. Don't care. Don't do it. Don't care. And moo.
Moo. Moo. Moo.
Moo.
Moo?
Should there be a cow companion for the Demon Hunter, and what would it do?